All right, welcome to another edition of the Behind the Point Spread, brought to you by Betfred Sports. I'm Travis Justice. We have a great show ready for you tonight. Another half hour of gambling talk, if that's what you like, and really just a half hour of football talk, which is going to make it a lot of fun because a lot of stuff has happened. But I can tell you, if you like Big Ten football, you're going to want to stick around and really pay attention to the games we're going to be talking about tonight. But first, let's kind of go through what the show is going to be about. First of all, we want you to download the brand spanking new Betfred Sports app. You can find it in the Google and Apple Play stores. If you live in Arizona, Colorado, or Iowa, we're going to give you a $20 free bet by just using the promo code DocTalk when you open up a brand new account. Again, that's DocTalk when you open up a brand new account. Tonight's show is for entertainment purposes only, and if you do have a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. If you don't follow the DocTalk social media pages, please do so. If you're watching on YouTube right now, just hit that subscribe button. You'll be informed when we got new videos come out, which is a lot lately. Like the Doc Talk Facebook page and follow Dr. Rob Zatechka on Twitter at Doc Talk Sports, and follow me, Travis Justice, at Travis Creates. This is a call-in show. We want you to call in. Again, write this number down, 402-543-5556. 402-543-5556. I'm telling you right now, Dr. Rob and I did a 2.5-hour show when Scott Frost was fired on Sunday. We had calls from Virginia all the way to Hawaii. Some of you, this is a lot like a call-in radio show, okay? So the same rules will apply. Now, if you want to drop an S-bomb or an F-bomb, you can do that. We don't really care. But if you want to also have your voice be heard, you can drop it in the comments, whether you're watching on YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter. Scott Spreitzer is our guest, as he is each and every week. He's a cool dude. He's been a friend of mine for many, 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 many years. We're aging ourselves is really what it's coming down to. You can see all his stuff at docsports.com. That's docsports.com. Follow him on Twitter at Scott Wins. And if you want to work with Scott, text DocTalk to 29022. And here's what happens. You're going to get a link when you do that. You're going to have access to all the important pages, such as Scott's daily free pick videos, as well as a page where you can sign up and get $60 in Scott's premium member-only picks. Again, that's the word DocTalk to the number 29022 for picks from Scott Spreitzer 7 days a week. And joining us now, the two of the coolest dudes I know, Scott Spreitzer, who's down in Las Vegas, and our good buddy, Dr. Rob Zatechka, who Rob, I used to think, now when I hang out with you, you're the smartest guy in the room. But when it comes to analytics, I'm starting to think Scott might have an edge on you. I think the math.
Oh, I'm an idiot with this stuff.
I was going to say, what do you call it? What is that called again when you're really, really good at one thing and you can't do anything else? That's me. Like, see, I couldn't even do the wordsmith stuff, Idiot savant. There we go. It just kind of dawns on me. I can't even get that right.
I don't know about that. I mean, it's one of those things that there's a skill set here in terms of looking at numbers and looking at these teams. And, the whole gambling and betting world, part of the reason I love doing this is because this is something that I know nothing about. I'm not good at it. I don't have a good understanding of it. I've never been a big sports gambler. This stuff's fun because this is probably the most I've learned about it. Working with Scott, listening in, talking with you guys. You look at the Betfred guys, Brian Bennett. I mean, absolute wealth of knowledge when it comes to this stuff.
I was going to ask
it's one
you,
of these things. I kind of worry that it's one of these rabbit holes that I'm going to start going down here over the next couple of months, and pretty soon I'm going to find myself moving to Vegas to try and become Scott's apprentice here to learn this.
We'll let you move to Vegas, but we're not going to let you go down that rabbit hole. We won't let you do that.
Are there a lot of people like Dr. Rob and myself? I'm not a huge bettor because I don't like parting with money because I don't have any money, right?
But are there a lot of telling me about how you're using the Betfred app and going over to the strip club in Iowa.
Well, here's the deal. A $5 parlay is not going to hurt you, right? I mean, you're like, okay, I'm going to do $5, and because you can do $5 on there. After that, I'm not like doing serious money. Are most? Do you find a lot of people just like us who are just fascinated by the numbers but don't put the money on it?
Yeah, I think there's that. There's also a lot of people who do it for entertainment, reasons. I mean, a father, a husband, let's say, or a wife of a father or a mother of 2 kids goes to a movie, it's $100. I don't even know if that includes popcorn and soda. And there's absolutely zero return other than the fact you were entertained. And I'm a big movie guy.
Yeah.
But you can sit on your couch if you've got nothing that you really want to do that day but watch games. And maybe you throw a $10 2-teamer out there and you can win 26 on top of your 10 you're getting back. And, if you're a big Washington State Cougar fan, you put $50 on them last week to beat Wisconsin outright, and you take home $375 for a $50 investment. So it's just one of those things. Listen, I always tell people call me all the time, guys, and they'll say, hey, really, I want to jump on board on your service. How much is it? Blah, 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 blah. And the first thing I ask them is, how much are you betting? Do you have a betting bankroll? Are you taking this seriously, or is it an entertainment thing for you? Because I'm going to tell you right now, if you are wagering less than $300 a game, don't buy services. I'm telling you, just don't, man. Because in order for you to get your money back with the VIG and everything else, factored in, nobody out there is going to hit, including myself, 75%.
So Scott does a service. I just want everybody to know, he just told you, if you're not doing $300 a game, don't call him, because he's helping you out, is what he's trying to say.
I've turned people down before. If they, it's like, I really do take this seriously. I don't want to hurt anybody. I really don't. And at the end of the day on a Saturday, if I've had a bad day, knock on wood, we haven't yet this season, but they're coming. If I have a bad day and I lose my own personal money, it's okay. That's life. I got a bankroll for betting, which is completely 100% separate from my living bankroll, from my funds in the bank, all that kind of stuff. Doesn't even come in contact with each other. And so if I have a bad day, I'm like, all right, had a bad day. Let's find out why. So we learn from it, and let's move on to tomorrow when they're singing national anthems again. If I have a bad day for a client, man, I'm telling you, it sticks in your craw. It's in your gut. Your gut is twisting and everything else, because I don't want to hurt anybody doing this. And so I tell people, I've turned down a lot of clients, potential clients, over the course of my, all these years I've been doing this. You're not going to get your money back if you're betting $20 a game, because I'd have to hit 90%, and it ain't going to happen. That ain't going to happen. And nobody is hitting over 70%, over 65%. The break-even point when it comes to 11 to win 10 in sports betting is 52.3%. That's break-even because of the VIG. So you got to hit at least 52.3% of your plays on 11 to win 10 just to break even. Professional sports bettors, we like to look at this and say, if I can hit 56%, that's a damn good season. So you can do the math. If you're betting $10, $20, and you just paid some guy $2,000 for his plays for the next 3 months, you're probably not going to get your money back, even if he goes 55, 56%.
Wow.
Not probably, you're not.
Now, if you're a $10 bettor, if you're a $20 bettor, if you're a $30 bettor, this show's for you, because we're going to give you a couple games to take a look at and have a little bit of fun with. And we're going to start tonight with, we're going to the Big Ten. This is, on paper, you would look at this one, right, and go, what a matchup. Michigan State at Washington. Huskies a 3-point favorite. The over-under at 57. This is that classic Big Ten Pac-12 matchup, Scott.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned at the top of the show, we got a Big Ten laden show today. And of course, we're talking about the Nebraska game and the Iowa game. I wasn't even thinking about it. When you said, hey, who you want to talk about? I'm like, oh, Minnesota, Colorado, Michigan State, Washington. I wasn't even thinking about it. Oh, it's Big Ten games also. We got 4 of them. But yeah, this clash, it's interesting. Now, this line, I sent you that it kind of started dropping to 3 a couple hours ago. And now it's inching its way back up to 3.5, with some money now coming in the last couple of hours on the Huskies. But this summer, Michigan State was a 3 to 4 point favorite. So that means this has moved anywhere from 6 to 7 points based off the first couple of weeks of the season. I don't think Washington deserves to move 6 or 7 points based off of what we've seen the first couple of weeks of the season. There's a false, betting myth that's out there. I'll call it a myth that talks about home favorites in college football and college basketball. Started more in college basketball, but they use it for college football too. And they'll say, now, home favorite that's unranked hosting a ranked opponent. At home favorite, they clean up. No, they don't. It's 50-50. It's 50-50. And it used to be a thing 20 years ago. It's not a thing anymore. Like anything else that works in favor of the bettors real well, sports books obviously pick up on it, and they make you pay premiums on those lines. They edge the lines a little bit more towards what can benefit them the most. That's their job. So here's Sparty, 7-0 spread run outside of Big Ten action. I like underdogs who can run and stop the run. They've allowed only 81 yards rushing so far through the first couple of games. They ran for more than 6 yards per pop themselves against Western Mich. And I know that the first two opponents haven't been, at the level of Washington. At the same time, Washington isn't, I don't think, night and day better than they were a season ago when they lost their last 7 of 8 games, when they lost their season opener last year at home to Montana, 13-7. They are better than last year. They are better than they were, for that entire season. The talent is there to make a jump eventually, but it's tough to gauge how good they are. They just played Portland State and Kent State. And here's the scary part if you're Washington. You just got outrushed by Kent. It was close, but you got outrushed, and you gave up 4 yards per carry in that game against Kent. If you're giving up 4 yards per carry to Kent, you're probably going to have a rough time on defense against Mich State. And so I do think the Spartans, especially now that it's inching back up to 3.5, is the way to go in this game.
Rob, you've played at Husky Stadium in Seattle, correct?
I have. Not an easy place to play.
Yeah, it all depends on what kind of crowds they're getting too, right? I mean, back in the Don James era, they were packing the place. I don't even know what kind of crowds they're even getting in Seattle anymore.
Well, when I was there, that's a little bit of a skewed argument because that was a heck of a lot different Washington team. I mean, Don James was a hell of a coach. He had Lambright at D coordinator who took over and was a pretty solid coach himself. They were coming off when we were up there. That was in '91, and they were coming off of a national title season. Still had a slew of NFL guys. So I mean, it's kind of a night and day. I mean, it's an apples and oranges comparison, in my opinion. It's a tough place to play. I think Michigan State's generally does reasonably well on the road. They're not a bad travel team. I look at Washington and I kind of wonder. You look at it. It's not Chris Peterson anymore. Who's the coach? Is it DeBoer? I think.
I don't even know who the coach is. I should know this because the guy who took Peterson's place has already been fired, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Kalen DeBoer.
Yeah.
Kalen DeBoer. So, I mean, not exactly the big name guy you're looking for there, but I don't know. It's an interesting game to me just for the fact that Mel Tucker's coming off of that season that he had last year, the productivity Michigan State had, their ability to take advantage of opponents' mistakes, something about like the Nebraska game. It's a pretty well-coached team, and it's coming in under that. Is this their second or third full year under Tucker?
I think it's the second full season, yeah.
Okay, so second full season under Tucker. You got a little bit of continuity there now with that team, and it's I don't know. I don't think going on the road, and I don't think for Washington being at home is that big of an advantage.
Got a question coming in for Scott. Scott, what do you think of Texas State plus 30 over Baylor? Baylor coming out physical game. Texas State covering FIU. Baylor at Iowa State next week. Any value in Texas State big physical O-line?
Just to be candid, I'm not playing this game, but remember Texas State found ways to lose to Nevada. Nevada's a 23.5 point underdog to Iowa, who hasn't even scored a combined 23 points in 2 games. So that kind of gives you a little bit of a read on Texas State, who originally was about a 10-point dog to Nevada, then became a short favorite. But yeah, it's a game I stay away from because you do have Baylor, who just comes off that hard-fought overtime game, and they did so at altitude to a certain extent. And of course, it was physical. It was right down the wire. And Baylor could come out in this game and go through the motions and win by 4 touchdowns. That's the scary part. So there's very few times when a team's coming off a very tough loss where I want to lay a bunch of points with them. That would be the case in this one. I would just pass altogether.
402-543-5556. We'd love for you to call. The lines are open. I've got producers upstairs who are Owen and Lizzie are just waiting for your phone call. So if you got a question for Scott or even Dr. Rob, go ahead and, again, 402-543.
Are you paying your producers? Or is this a tacos and beer kind of thing?
It's a tacos and beer type of thing. We're going to stay in the Big Ten in another Pac-12 matchup. This one going to be at the Big Ten house. And let's be honest, Colorado is shit. They're not any good. They're horrible. Minnesota, we had Mitch Sherman from The Athletic on our podcast, Scott. He thinks that Minnesota actually has a good chance at winning the Big Ten West Division. And PJ Fleck, I didn't like him at first. The guy's growing on me, but they're 27.5 point favorite. That over under at 40. Is it 47? I believe it is
47. Correct.
Yeah.
And listen, I saw the other day, maybe it was a couple weeks ago, whatever, about Bill McCartney turning, I think, 82 years old. And I'm thinking, my gosh, look how far this program has fallen. I mean, Husker fan,
Look at
you got
Nebraska.
nothing. You got nothing on Colorado. I mean, you're losing close games. This team just stinks. This might be one of the worst teams in Division I football at this point.
Have you seen Iowa?
Well, at least Iowa plays defense.
Okay.
Yeah,
Iowa's at least got defense and special
Yes.
teams.
That's
Just
true.
Their offense.
That's
sucks.
true.
I've watched Colorado. That is a horrible, horrible team.
I played under 3.5 wins. I think we talked about it on this show before the season began. That was one of my top plays, was under 3.5 on Colorado. And I'm in one of those points where I'm playing against a team until they beat me a couple of times. So far, we're 2-0 going against Colorado. But how about these numbers? TCU will mix things up on offense. They gave up 275 yards, did Colorado to TCU, on the ground on 28 carries. That's almost 10 yards per rush attempt. Then they go up against Air Force. You know what Air Force is going to do. They're going to run the football. They threw 5 passes the entire game, Air Force. There was no trickeration or whatever you want to call it out there going on with this Air Force team. They gave up 435 yards rushing to Air Force on almost 7 yards per carry. 7.6 yards per carry against TCU and Air Force. That's what this Colorado run defense has allowed. And now you face Minnesota with arguably the best running back in college football. Ibrahim's one of the best. They know how to run the football, no doubt about it. Tanner Morgan's only thrown 37 passes in 2 games because he hasn't had to throw the football. He's 27 for 37. That was against New Mexico State and Western Illinois. I don't know how much better Colorado is. I mean, my power ratings say that Colorado would be a 10-point favorite over New Mexico State on a neutral field, but I wouldn't lay those points, not with this team. And so it's a situation to me where, boy, you add a little bit of that home field advantage. I made this line on a neutral field 26. Throw in some home field advantage. Throw in the way Colorado has been knocked all over the place, and I've got to play on Minnesota. And again, it's one of those things where I'm playing against Colorado until they beat me a couple of times. I think they're that bad. And, I was talking about McCartney. Those last, I guess it was 4 years, if I recall correctly, 58-11. That's how far this program has dropped. He was like 86-30 with a couple of ties after the first 3 years when he rebuilt this program. And when you think back to those days, you think of Rob's playing days, and you think of stuff like, it was Oklahoma, it was Nebraska, it was Colorado in the Big 8. And to see how far this team has fallen, I tell you what, I'd lay 20 with Nebraska over Colorado probably. That's how bad they are right now. This offense won't even do anything.
They were kind of the Ohio State of that era. I mean, they were that team that kind of played for the national title every half a dozen years. They were always in a big bowl game. They were always a top 5 team, but they were just an absolute NFL factory.
Yep.
I mean, the number of NFL guys that came out of there was amazing.
You mentioned Rob's playing days. Look at that guy right back there in the back.
Wow.
Huh?
I like that. Hey, you like that picture. Turn the page. Show the picture of me against Kansas.
You're massive. Hold on. Oh, here's Rob. This is Sports Illustrated, by the way. Look at Rob. Just
Wow.
total. Look how big he is there. How much did you weigh
out right now, man?
Yeah, I like that picture only because it's KU. KU sucks. That was one of their starting outside linebackers. So I was probably about 325 then.
Who was the team you didn't want to play? I mean, there's teams that are really good, but man, I want to play to see where we are. Who's the team that just messed you with a little bit between the years that you weren't looking forward to play, if there was one?
Boy, that's a good question. Osborne's mindset. And when I say Osborne's mindset, Osborne was one of those guys that he kind of
That's great.
He's sick right now. That's awesome. That's like a dude loses weight. You don't ask him, hey, you've lost some weight. You look great. The guy is you lose weight, you're like, you lost some weight. What's going on? You can drink a couple of beers. Back to the beers and tacos.
Brian's not my favorite part of the show after that.
The thing is about in terms of that mental prep, boy, we loved the all comers. I mean, about the only time I remember maybe a little bit between the ears was Washington in 91. And they were an unbelievable team. Again, absolutely loaded with NFL guys. You had Mark Brunell, you had Steve Entman. They basically had NFL guys at every position. Very, very good team at the time. I remember we were practicing onside kicks the week before the game. And I think it was Keithan McCant went to Osborne and told Coach Osborne, we need to knock this shit off. If we're in a position where we're doing an onside kick, that means we're trying to come from behind, and we don't even want to think that way. So, like, let's not even bother practicing this shit because we're going to kick these guys' ass. So
that's awesome stuff.
I mean, Osborne always wanted you prepared for everything. But, I mean, from a player standpoint, from a mentality standpoint, we did not like the idea of being the underdog. Now, there's a great logic in terms of being the underdog and being the, hey, we're gonna get you. You're not going to see us coming. We're going to beat you. We got that chip on our shoulder, underdog mentality. At that point in time, under Osborne, we didn't want to be the underdog. We wanted to be the favorite. We viewed ourselves as the favorite. And so there was not a lot of teams we didn't want to face. And I mean, you even get to the point where in 94, when we were trying to get back into the rankings and to the point where you could play for a national title because Penn State had jumped us. I think at one point we'd actually dropped to number 3 in the nation. We beat Colorado, and again, who's who in the NFL draft.
True.
Colorado in 94. Bounced back up to, I think within a week or so, we bounced back up to number 1. But, you know, towards the end of that season, everybody on that Nebraska team wanted to play Miami in the Orange Bowl, and that was kind of the direction things were going. And that was the Miami team that had Warren Sapp, that had Ray Lewis, that had
but it had Frank Costa as quarterback, and there's still body parts of him just laying on the Orange Bowl.
There is, and I will still say, I think he is the most disrespected and underrated.
It's because he got his ass kicked in that game.
He did, but the guy was a pretty good quarterback, and Miami hated him. Like the Miami media, the fan base, everybody hated.
I tell you what, I'm watching a fan base turn on a quarterback right now, and it leads us into our next game. How'd you like that?
Okay, yeah, I want to know when Ferentz is going to pull the trigger.
Dude, here's the deal. I don't think he's pulling the trigger because I don't think there is anybody else. I really do believe that he doesn't trust Alex Padilla at this point. It's the only way you can explain it. Spencer Petras right now, numbers-wise, one of the worst quarterbacks in the country. Iowa has only scored 14 points all season long. Really 10 offensive points if you want to get down to it. Scott, explain to me how they're a 23-point favorite, but yet the over-under is only 39. There's some stuff that doesn't make sense here.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. They're expecting, I guess, about a 30, that would make about a 36-3 win or something like that.
Yeah.
Does Nevada actually have a worse offense than Iowa?
The offense might not be. It's so bad, Rob, because Nevada, you're used to seeing in some of the bowl games over the course of the last, 25 years. It's not UNLV. This is Reno, and they've always fielded a good team. But remember, before the season began, I think it was before week 0, we were talking about them, and I mentioned I played them under 4.5 wins, and I expected them to start 3-0. I didn't think they'd win another game. Well, they're 2-1. I got a break. They just got their butts kicked by Incarnate Word in Reno, 55-41.
Incarnate Word. Isn't that an NAIA school?
Wait a second. They got beat by Incarnate Word.
55-41 in Reno. And remember, I told you that 45 players from last year's roster are no longer on this football team. The coach left for Colorado State, took assistants with him, took some players with him, and everybody else said, okay, we're jumping ship because we were here to play for Norvell, and now he's gone. So 45 players from last year are not on this team. They got an extremely lucky start with 2 of their wins to get to 2-0. And again, I thought they'd be 3-0, and I thought it's still extremely safe for under 4.5 wins. They're 2-1 because they gave up 55 points. Now, in Incarnate Word, let me just jump in here real quick and say this. They got a bunch of D1 transfers on this year's team. Okay. And they could vie for a title at their level. So it's not like a terrible football team. Maybe they got a better offense than the Hawkeyes. We'll find out. But,
statistically, they do.
Where is Incarnate Word?
It's in Texas.
It's a Texas school, yeah. Texas
okay.
School.
Let me guess. It's in Abilene.
No, it's not Abilene. I'm trying to think. I can't
Is it San
remember what it
Antonio?
exactly is. San Antonio, that's it. Yeah, it's
Okay.
outside of San Antonio. I think they play at a stadium that holds like maybe 12, 15,000 people. It's a real small stadium. But, I look at this and I'm thinking, okay, I know ICW is a good program at their level. They gained 616 yards against the Wolfpack, 210 on the ground, 406 through the air. I'm telling you what, if Petrus and the Hawkeye offense can't put up 28 points in this game, they might as well just pack it in. We talked about this before week 0, how bad this football team is for Nevada because they're completely in a rebuild. Here's what I would say. If they cannot win this game by at least a final score of 38-7, the Hawkeyes, that offensive staff, they ought to either leave, get out of Iowa City altogether, or say, you know what? We got work to do. We're not even going to take a paycheck for the next 3 weeks. That's how much I believe that Iowa has to go out there and beat a team like the Wolfpack, who basically have nobody left to play. I mean, it's a bunch of newcomers. They've got a brand new coach, brand new systems, both sides of the football. But yet I'm not going to lay the 23.5. I can't trust this offense. This is like last week saying, no, Nebraska's 23.5 over Georgia Southern. This is a game they should handle. I'm like, I'm not touching that. I'm not touching Iowa until if they might not score 23, 24 points, right? So until they do, I got to see the proof. As Travis mentioned, 14 points in 2 games, and they have 1 touchdown. It's crazy.
Well, you'd think their defense and special teams could put up 14.
I would think so. A couple of turnovers here and short field situations set up for the offense.
The defense has a couple of safeties,
Right.
That's what they have so far.
They're scoring points.
They're scoring points. They're doing a heck of a lot better job than the offense is for sure.
This is a gift, guys. Real quick, I was just going to say, this is a gift home game for Iowa if they want to get right. That's how bad Nevada is right now. And it's to no fault of the players that are still there. They just lost everybody.
Wow. Now, this has got to bring back some nostalgia for you, Scott. It's OU, Nebraska. Oklahoma, an 11-point. I've seen 11.5. We got in an 11 on this one. The over-under at 67. This is an interesting game. I really do believe that just on how Nebraska reacts after the firing of Scott Frost. Your thoughts on this?
Yeah, you know what? It's funny. This goes back. I mean, my first ever season of going to Nebraska football games, I was a little kid, and I was probably like 8 or 9 years old the first time I went to any game. So we're talking like 75, 76. And I wish I still had it, but I had one of those better dead than sooner red shirts, and of course, and wore that proudly for many, many years, especially after Osborne finally got that first win over Switzer. But I'm looking at this, and it's 10.5-11 Oklahoma. And on Sunday morning, before Scott Frost was fired, when everybody, at least outside of the state of Nebraska, thought they'd wait till October, this line was 16.5. It's now down to 10.5-11. The money's been coming in steadily on the Huskers, and it's kind of funny that they are, because you would think that the number wouldn't have been that high in the first place, only because Nebraska plays nothing but close games. Under Frost last year and this year, they're not getting blown out. It's all close losses. And so I was a little surprised it was 16.5 on Sunday morning. The bottom line is that, listen, there are only 2 teams on Nebraska's schedule that I still think have more individual talent than them overall as far as depth, and that's Oklahoma and Wisconsin. But this line was 3.5-4 3 months ago. And to see it jump 13 points based off of 3-point losses in 2 of their 3 games is a little bit crazy. Oklahoma only led Kent State 7-3 in the third quarter, and they finished dead even in first downs in that game with Kent State at 20. They had a +2 turnover margin that they took advantage of. And they wore down Kent kind of the way Nebraska sort of did against North Dakota, although that could be disputed whether they wore them down completely or not. Listen, Oklahoma should win this game by a couple of touchdowns. I don't know how Mickey Joseph and his defensive staff all of a sudden in less than a week gets this team or this defense to all of a sudden realize, hey, we got to keep our gap assignments. I mean, I saw Carricker. I love watching Carricker, by the way, guys. I watch your show. I watch Carricker, and he's talking about this is nothing difficult. This is not tough. He's talking about where you line up in your A gap and all that kind of stuff and everybody else. And it's like, I don't know that they can turn this around that fast. That's a big discipline issue, I guess, from the coaches right down to the players. Rob would know more about this than I would. But from analyzing these games all these years, I'm hoping they keep it close, man. I want to see Mickey Joseph do well, see the players do. The fans deserve so much more. The players that committed to this program deserve so much more. I'm not going to play the game. Travis asked me, Dr. Rob, yesterday, he goes, what's that line? I go, it's dropping. It's down to, at the time, 11.5. He goes, are you getting involved? Nope. And he goes, discipline? He goes, discipline? And I went, absolutely. There's a million games on the board that I'm involved in, and this won't be one of them. And neither will the Iowa game.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I wouldn't touch it either. I mean, but see, you're a seasoned vet. There's some people like to. I think it was Brian earlier said, "Oh, I played Texas State against Nevada." I said, because somebody gets that in their head. Well, I'm going to play Texas State, or you played Nevada, or whatever it was. But sometimes you can't bet with your heart, right? You got to do the homework.
Absolutely.
You got to. Hey, I want to show you guys something. Rob, you've seen this, but this is from our good friend David Max and our good friends over at Fanalytics. They have this is a prototype. So right now, Scott, if you go to Fanalytics, you can follow any NCAA college football game, any NFL game, and do a lot of in-game statistics stuff, right? Well, this is an actually development one where you can do some pregame statistics and kind of break down really what it is. And something that really came out to me, let's say you just want to do some average betting, right? Here is, look at the tackles for loss, Oklahoma. They're at 20 this year compared to 6 for Nebraska, right? And you can go into the sacks. They have a total of 64 yards in sack yards. You can just really break it down analytically. And I just want everybody to know that Fanalytics is going to be coming out with this this pregame stuff. You can do it during the game and follow along and get a lot of that especially if you like to bet on your apps in game. A lot of good information there, but really cool stuff. And Rob, you and I have talked to him on the podcast. What they're doing with this stuff is really super cool.
No, this is fun stuff just because it might be the most interactive data analysis that you can get into as a fan. I just like the fact that you can kind of get in there and play around with this and look at all of these different numbers.
You are much more sophisticated than most of us, Scott. But I mean, when you see something like that, are those tools that like novice gamblers are using a lot more and more to get that information?
That's why bettors are so much smarter now than they were 20 years ago. It's not even close. The average bettor who actually studies this stuff, even if they have a full-time job and they spend a couple of hours a day on this stuff, is so much smarter night and day than the average bettor 20 years ago. That's why they call it squares, right? The public. They win 50% of the time. But like I just told you got to go 52.3 to break even. And so they lose their money over the course of time, but they're still hitting half their games. So and it's all because of things like this. It's funny when you put that up there because the first thing I thought of is when we get off the air, I got to text Travis to make sure I got that website. I want to check it out because I'm a metrics guy.
I'll send you the link. I'll send you the link.
I'm more of a metrics guy when it comes to baseball than I am with football.
Yeah.
But I still love to dig into the metrics. I like in the NFL, one of the things that I like to look at, I'll give you just a real quick metric, just as an example. There's a thing called EPA per attempt. And basically what it does is if you got a team that gains 5 yards on 3rd and 10, it's not the same as a team that gets 5 yards on 3rd and 3. And so it's going to look the same in the box score, but they're so different in how much they matter over the course of a game and the course of a few games in a season that you really break down these metrics and start to find out, okay, which are the teams that get garbage yardage when it really doesn't help their game and which team is getting the job done when it matters, when the first down is on the line or the fourth quarter, the game's on the line. So I look at all those kind of metrics, EPA per attempt, stuff like that, DVOA, which is a defensive statistic that takes out a lot of the luck and all that crap. And so I'll look at this, definitely. I love this kind of stuff. I don't know if you can use it in game, which when you said in game, it's the first thing I thought of. I got to check it out because in game, you got to be quick like this.
Yeah, that's
and
true.
You really got to get your bets down because those lines are moving like crazy.
402-5.
Does it matter in terms of actually just watching the game itself or watching these teams play as opposed to just looking at the metrics?
For me, it's, not as much in the NFL. College football, I got to watch the games, man. I have got to see what's going on. I record as many games as I possibly can at home, and I'm watching games live. And then I go back and I'll watch a lot of games on Saturday nights when I'm handicapping my games for the next week, and I'll have them on. I have to watch college football. NFL, there's so many metrics, and those guys are all college football all-stars. It's more situational than anything else.
402-543-5556. Brad, welcome to Behind the Point Spread. You're on with Scott Spreitzer and Dr. Rob. What's up, man?
Nothing. Thanks for putting me on. I got a few things to say and then a question. First off, I've been listening to the show. I've got some good plays out of you guys. Scott, I signed up for your service. Got that play on Saturday when Air Force fumbled on the goal line. I was a little nervous, but second half they did it. And anyway, so here's my situation or question. So I've been following the Kansas coach Lance Leipold, and when he took the job last year, I didn't play Kansas at all. It was his first year, but of course I watched. I saw him beat Texas, and then I think he even covered 2 games after that, or or whatnot. So this year, when the early lines came out, I saw they were the over-under was 2.5 wins for the season. I guess in your terms, I'd say I played 7 units on them going over. And I think that's a fairly solid bet. Anyway, then I didn't bet them the first week against Tennessee Tech. I wanted to see how they looked. They clobbered them. So when the line came out against West Virginia, originally on FanDuel Sunday night, it was 14.5, and I grabbed it against 7 units. And it ended up settling at 13.5. And I thought they may be able to beat them outright, but I didn't bet the money line. So here's the question. If I'm playing an underdog and I think and I'm taking the spread, is there a rule of thumb to like not bet the money line at all or not go over a certain percentage? And I was thinking I wasn't going to get the money line because if they cover and don't win, it would take away from my profit with the spread. So I guess that's my question. When you take an underdog in the spread, do you not take the money line at all, or do you go up to 10%, or what do you do there? And I'll hang up and listen.
Thanks, Brad.
Great questions, and thanks for jumping on board. Yeah, Air Force was scaring me too there for a little while. Then they finally got to go into the second half. The goal line situation was not fun in the first half, but great questions. And what I do, like I got a buddy of mine who bet Washington State on the money line last week against Wisconsin, thinking they would win outright. I don't do that. And I don't want to insult anybody who does that. But to me, if you're taking, like, if I have a team that's getting less than 7 points, I got to think they can win this game outright, even if I just take the points. So you'll hear me sometimes doing shows or in my analysis of write-ups at Doc Sports, where I'll sit there and I'll say, I like so-and-so at plus 3.5, maybe sprinkle 5-8% of your bet on the money line that they're going to win outright. But when it comes to a double-digit dog, I can't remember the last time, probably in the 1990s when I was a young buck in this business, where I actually bet money line on a double-digit dog. I just don't like to do it myself. And in the long run, it's not going to give you much value. Now, if you put 95% of your wager plus the points with the double-digit dog, 4 or 5% or whatever with the money line, by all means, take your shots here and there. But I wouldn't go more than 4 or 5% on a double-digit dog. The way I look at it, again, this kind of sounds insulting, but I don't mean it to sound that way. But to get right to the point, a good bet last week was Washington State plus 17.5 over Wisconsin. That's good money. Bad money is the money line with the team that's getting 17.5 points. They got the job done. They not only covered, they won the game outright, as you know. But the bottom line is, over the course of a season, to put too much money on these double-digit dogs is just not the way to go for me. I think it's putting kind of bad money on good money.
The smart look at Mark. He's watching on LinkedIn. Says loves us, loves the crew. This is a fun show. And it's pretty laid back. I hope you enjoy it. And that was a really good question.
Well, did you hear that guy? I just want to interrupt you real quick. There's a guy who knows what the heck he's doing. Seriously. Yes. I mean, he calls in, and that's the kind of guy who probably has a bankroll, I hope, that's separate from his everyday expenses. He sounds like that guy. He's disciplined. He's looking at this game. I mean, that was sharp money on Kansas. That wasn't square money coming in last week against West Virginia. That wasn't, Joe Schmo walking into the Westgate Hotel in Vegas. That was guys who knew what they were doing last week that were betting Kansas plus the points.
All right. Does Larry know what he's doing? He says lock of the week's Florida State.
There's only one word in there that I have a problem with because I'll never say it. Lock. I'll never say lock. I will say it's not a bet for me, but I lean Florida State. But you'll never, ever in your life ever hear me lock unless I'm talking to some guy who I lock my locksmith or whatever. I just won't say it. I'm going to give you guys a great example from a few years ago when Harbaugh was at Stanford. I remember talking to a buddy of mine. You guys like him, Big Al McMorty. You love the name. You don't even know him yet.
Big Al McMorty. I can't wait to meet him.
Oh, you'll meet him one day. We're sitting there one night and we're talking about like 3 days down the road. It was Stanford, USC. I think I'm going to say Southern Cal was laying like 34, 33 points. Yeah, this was before Harbaugh built things up a little bit. And I remember saying, well, at least they're going to win. I just don't know if they can cover that spread. Well, 4 hours later on a Saturday night, Stanford won the game outright. You don't say lock. You just don't do it.
Well, I know Rob's hoping so because his daughter goes to Florida State, so he's going to be at the Florida State Clemson game a little bit later on in the season. So that'll be interesting to see how Rob handles that. We still have yet to do a show that's a half hour long. We're already at 39 minutes. Quick reminder that the Doc's Diagnosis takes place on Monday, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays. We learned a valuable lesson, Scott, about the Doc's Diagnosis. We can't record it when Dr. Rob's drunk.
Right.
And we did that last week, and
I don't know
it
if it
showed.
was a drunk thing. It was just we did it after we did essentially a 3-hour podcast.
Yes.
At that point, I'm tired. I just want to go home and go to bed.
You did have a 12-pack of beer during that 3-hour podcast. I'm just telling you. I mean, you had quite a bit to drink.
Yeah, but you drank 8 of those 12 beers.
No, I think I don't know if that's the case or not. Of course, Scott joins us each and every Wednesday night at 8:00. If you want to talk to Scott, just like Brad did earlier, Brad has purchased Scott's service, and you heard Scott say earlier, if you're not doing $300 a game, he's probably not for you, but the show's for you. And if you just want to get some good freebies from Scott too, text the word 29022 and then use the text Doc Talk to 29022. You're going to get a link where you get Scott's daily free pick videos, and you can also sign up to get $60 in Scott's premium members only picks. Again, the word Doc Talk to the number 29022. If you want a free bet from Doc Talk or from Betfred Sports, go ahead and download the Betfred Sports app and create a new account. Promo code DocTalk, $20 free bet in Arizona, Colorado, and Iowa. Again, that's on new signups. Tonight's show is for entertainment purposes only. Please remember that. If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Follow Doc Talk Sports on the social media channels. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow Dr. Rob on Twitter at Doc Talk Sports. Follow me at Travis Creates. And, of course, like our Facebook page. Guys, did you have fun tonight? I'm sorry we still can't get it down to a half an hour. I'm a shitty producer because I should be off in a half hour. When I begged Scott to do this, I was on my hands and knees begging Scott, I'm only going to take a half hour of your time. I promise. And we're going like 40, 45 minutes every week.
When you told me I was on with Dr. Rob, I almost paid you to be on the show. Come on, let's get it right here. I've been watching the show. What happened is about a month ago, more than that, a couple of months ago, I was commenting with Travis on a text about something you guys had said on a show. And he's like, you listen to the show? I'm like, as much as possible. And so that's where it all started.
Man, that is so cool.
Scott gets all of his information.
Yeah,
well Rob and I talk after the show, and that usually takes about 90 minutes to 2 hours.
Well, here's the deal. This is probably, and you and I have talked, this is a lot different than most shows you do, right? I mean, it's pretty.
Oh, I love this. Yeah.
Do you ever let your guard down on other shows? Like, okay, I'm not on with Travis and Rob right now.
I did. Guys, I'm not a big cusser, swearer, whatever you want to call it. We kind of keep it out of our household. And I was doing a podcast.
You wouldn't like it around here.
There you go. I'm doing a show in Phoenix that I've been doing for 18 years, and I dropped the S-bomb, and it's terrestrial radio. And then I almost followed it up with an OF. I said S.
No. What you do when that happens, all you have to do is say sorry, Dave, because Dave Remington used to get really mad at us for dropping the F-bombs all the time.
And VSiN is so buckled up, buttoned up. I got to be real careful on VSiN, even though they could probably get away with murder on that show. But it's Brent Musburger, so what are you going to do?
Yeah, exactly. All right, Dr. Rob, Scott Spreitzer, thanks so much. We will see you next week on another edition of Behind the Point Spread, presented by Betfred Sports. We'll see you then.